Shalom, this is Yeshafat Oliver. We are faced with a dilemma. The dilemma is between, on the one hand, fitting in society, being a part of a community, maintaining friendships, maintaining relationships with family, maintaining acquaintances, also maintaining employment, maintaining broader contacts, maintaining civility. Civility is sort of the glue that keeps society together. You know, someone doesn't comment that I have a beard that looks unusual. I don't comment that they're wearing a tattoo. You know, everybody sort of overlooks. Everybody goes along to get along. To some degree, that's necessary. It's part of functioning in society. Is just this tolerance and not necessarily making waves, not creating issues, not rocking the boat. There is something to be said for all of that, because we need to live in society. If you would take these ideas to an extreme, these, more radical, revolutionary ideas, well, you'd be left completely isolated. And we're supposed to be social creatures. And on the other hand, there is truth. There is justice. There is what's right. And there is fighting for that. Fighting against lies, against deception, against mind control, against psychological abuse of the people by psychopaths, by corrupt, mad people who lack sensitivity to others, who lack compassion, who lack humanity, who take advantage of weak or naive people. They take advantage of people who are downtrodden, who are in difficult situations, to use them for money, for control, for sick pleasure. So if you look at the evil in the world, then there are fights to be fought wherever you turn. Fights for justice, for fairness, fights against people being mistreated, victimized, fights against various levels of deception, outright deception, subtle deception. And COVID is a case where, in my opinion, there is very little room for the first approach. Our society in this time is being traumatized on a level that is completely unprecedented. There, maybe after 9/11, for a certain amount of time, there was this mass trauma, which 9/11 was an inside job. Just by the way. But still, that doesn't come close to what we are collectively experiencing at this time. We are collectively experiencing the most unprecedented psychological warfare operation, this attack on our identities, on our personalities, to reshape, to restructure society, and reshape our personalities so we will conform with this new mold of social control that the elites intend to accomplish through the COVID-19 inside job big lie. So now is not a time for going along to get along, in my opinion, because now is a time of an emergency, of a crisis, an unprecedented crisis. So we may not be familiar with this circumstance. Thank God we've lived in very prosperous times for decades now, at least here in prosperous countries, America, Australia, where I'm from. We haven't been involved with war. There's been no war on American shores, on Australian shores. 9/11 was an inside job from the government, so that wasn't war. We don't know what that means. We don't have that the memory of that. We have like a second, third generation memory of that. We have no first generation memory of that. And so we've been spoiled, and we don't know what it means to deal with corrupt governments, because our governments have been corrupt all along, but they've been corrupt behind the scenes. They've been showing a face of righteousness, of, in general, worthiness, and not open tyranny. And now that's all changing. We are witnessing a takeover through deception, but one that is, rapidly for many people becoming clearly open tyranny. Contact tracing is blatant tyranny. I just can't understand how anyone could think for a second that contact tracing has any rationale to it. It is just mind-boggling to me how someone could be so silly to believe that story for a second. But it's hard to believe that the country, the government that you trusted in your whole life and you thought you were safe in, you thought the times had changed, you thought things were different here in the West in this modern era. It's really hard to believe that it's not true anymore. Maybe it was never true. It's incredible cognitive dissonance. It's incredibly disturbing. So there's this incredible denial of the reality that's before people's eyes. The reality that the emperor has no clothes. There is no massive death toll from COVID-19. That means there's no need for restrictions, and there never was. The models were all debunked. They were all proven wrong. And yet, even though this has all been pointed out, the government continues with its rules, and people are starting to wake up. We live in a time of tyranny. So in this time, this is not a time to go along to get along. It's not a time to wear a mask. It's not a time to social distance. It's not a time to conform. It's a time to disobey, to rebel, to dissent, to defy authority, to stand up to authority, to approach anyone you can and have the guts to, make your points, ask the right questions, show them that people aren't just blindly following, that there are people asking questions. Every single time someone asks a question to an authority figure, that guy knows, or that woman knows, that people out there who are not so dumb as these, people in power think. There are people are onto them. They can't manipulate us as much as they could before. When 9/11 happened, really the vast majority of people fell for it. Only later on did they wake up. For example, Richard Gage, very courageous 9/11 activist. He was an engineer. He didn't realize that 9/11, the official story of 9/11 couldn't be true. Just didn't occur to him. He didn't. He didn't have reason to investigate further, and he believed the official story. He didn't think more deeply into it. Later on, it was brought to his attention, and then he looked into it, and then he admitted that what he had believed was false, and he very admirably came out leading a movement for 9/11 truth, which also cost him very much personally, if I remember correctly. So we should all learn from that. But in any case, 9/11 or 9/11, everybody fell for it. Everyone was controlled by it, and that was a very successful operation. But now it's been taken to a whole new level. The tyranny that's happening now through the COVID-19 lie, this is unprecedented, but also the awareness of the public is unprecedented. And I think it's related to 9/11 because over time, many people came to be aware of 9/11 truth. So I have been involved with 9/11 for around 2 years, and I find it bizarre that on the one hand, more people than ever are catching on to 9/11 truth. At the same time, there is no mass movement to expose 9/11 truth, to bring to justice whichever perpetrators are still alive. The 9/11 truth movement is essentially a dead movement. It's just mainly one organization, Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. And you would think that what was done on 9/11 should demand an outcry from the people, but the people are sort of not complacent. They gave up, like despaired. I'm an individual. What can I do about it? The 9/11 movement as such, to make rallies and to make big events and so on, that has died, unfortunately. But on the other hand, the people know. People are aware what the government is really about. It's really about, control at any cost. That the government view people as like ants, like cattle, subhuman. That's what we are to these elites. We are just tools, pawns on a chessboard for them to sacrifice. You sacrifice a pawn to get a better position in the chessboard. Perfectly legitimate. If you're in control and everyone else is inferior to you, because you do not fear God, you do not respect human life, the life that God created. So, but people are much more aware about this than they were when 9/11 happened. There is a sort of silent majority. I don't know if it's a majority, but a very large percentage of the population that is woke. So I think that means with regard to COVID that people are more receptive to COVID-19 truth than they would have been had a 9/11 not happened first. 9/11 was like, on the one hand, 9/11 was a preparation for COVID, as far as the elites are concerned, because they went from one false flag operation to another one that was all that much bigger. On the other hand, as far as the people are concerned, 9/11 woke up a lot of people over the years, and now they're more receptive to being informed about COVID-19 truth. So we have to get a critical mass of people who really don't fall for the lies, who see through the lies, who will not cooperate with the lies. And this is a fundamental issue that I see over here. The conflict between truth and sort of peace, unity, conformity. There are too many lies and too much at stake to conform in this case. But it's not just always about truth versus. I'm not saying never to conform, and I'm not saying always to conform. In general, I'm personally inclined to conform less, and that's just more my personality. But there are cases when, it's not appropriate to make a fuss about something. It's just socially, in that situation, it makes no sense to point out something that's not appropriate. It's just, there are such situations. You don't always say everything on your mind, obviously, right? You sort of filter what you say when you want to relate to other people. That's just part of functioning of society. It doesn't mean you're flattering other people. But you could be flattering other people. It just depends on the situation. It's all context specific. But that's the point. In this context, we can't mess around. We're dealing with complete tyranny. We're dealing with a takeover of our society, of our communities, and an invasion of our homes with the contact tracing army and technology that's being deployed right now. We're being attacked from all sides. Our society is being attacked, our communities are being attacked, our schools are being attacked, and our homes are being attacked. Everything is being attacked ferociously by the elites. We are under attack. We need to acknowledge that and tell other people about it. I know it just sounds so strange that you have to tell people that they're being attacked, but I mean, I guess life is like that in general. We have a good inclination and an evil inclination. We have an inner struggle between the good and the evil inclination. So what's the key to winning in that struggle is to be aware that there is a struggle. When people aren't aware that they have an inner struggle to fight between a good side and a dark side, well, then they won't fight it, will they? And then they'll lose because they don't realize there's a war to be fought. So that's on the internal stage. But the same thing is happening on the societal level. If we realize and we tell others the truth that we're under attack, then we stand some chance of prevailing. or at least of not going down like complete lemmings. I think even that's something. At least go down fighting. At least go down sharing the truth. You'll have more self-respect in the world to come. At least. I saw recently just a very disturbing series of videos from a guy called Isaac Cappy, who's a actor in Hollywood who came out exposing actors and producers, famous celebrities who were, according to his claims, who were involved with pedophilia and pedophile rings. And he stated very clearly he's not suicidal, has no intention, has no suicidal thoughts. He's perfectly healthy in that regard, thank you very much. And he is afraid for his life because these elites are known to take out those who exposed them. And he did expose them. And you can watch the videos of him exposing these elites. And, at some point, the news came out that he was committed suicide. Yeah, he was suicided. And that's all very disturbing, but what I want to talk about is that I heard him saying in one of his videos, he said he doesn't want to sell out. He doesn't want to hide what he knows. He'd rather endanger his life and tell the truth and expose these evil people than live and have it on his hands, on his conscience that he stayed silent. So this should be a tremendous lesson for us, especially since today we're all under there's not even any point in going along. Now it's a different kind of situation because there's no point in going along to get along because there's no community to get along with. Our communities are being destroyed. We don't have any community structure anymore. If when you go to shul, to the synagogue, you can't approach someone else and shake their hand and whatever, slap them on the back or what have you, or in some context when you're around Sephardi Jews are much more warm than Ashkenazi Jews. They always want to, they give lots of hugs. You give them a hug when you say hello and a hug when you say goodbye. It's great. If you can't have that kind of personal bonding in the communal setting, which is what the communal setting is designed for. Obviously, synagogues are for prayer. Don't get me wrong. During the services, we should be praying and not chatting. But still, after the services, that's a time for that. And then we have a kiddush, which is on Shabbos afternoon, the afternoon of the Sabbath. After the services, the community sits down and eat some refreshments, and people chat and catch up with one another. It's a setting for bonding amongst members of the community in a way that would not be possible during the work week. All that has been taken from us, and I don't see it coming back anytime soon, because whenever you have restrictions, that creates a chilling effect. I'm gonna bond with someone from 1.5 meters away when I know that I can't approach them any closer, and if I do, that'll be some kind of like really terrible violation of the social norms. It's just too restrictive to bond in such an environment. It's just traumatic. I don't want to go into a synagogue like that. I'm not going into, unless I have no choice whatsoever for something that's absolutely essential. Maybe for the services on Rosh Hashanah, if that's the only possible place, and Yom Kippur, certain services that are, essential to go to the synagogue for. But otherwise, I'm not going. I'm not going to put myself in that kind of environment. I'm not going to subject myself to wearing a mask. I'm not participating in this whole insane charade. And I encourage other people also not to. I mean, everyone should make the choice for themselves, but wearing a mask is participating in a lie. It's a big lie. It's not a little lie. It's not. I mean, it depends on the size of the lie, I guess. If it's something really, really minor, then you go along to get along. If it's really not a big deal and not significant, doesn't affect them, it's all about the context. In this context, should be no question. The masks are a big lie. The masks don't protect you from COVID-19. They don't protect others from COVID-19. If COVID-19 is so very contagious that then the people who are at great risk from getting it will get it anyway, even if everyone is wearing a mask. And anyway, the CDC at the beginning said that the masks aren't needed and they're harmful. So the science changed? No, it didn't. Just the phase of the mind control operation changed. In the earlier stages, it wasn't in their interest to push for, everyone to wear masks, because then the focus was to push for everyone to stay home, save lives. Now that people are being let out, so the mind control operation has to continue with the trauma of everyone wearing a mask. So don't take part in this lie. Do everything you can to avoid participating in the lie. It's a big lie. Call it out. Tell other people to call it out. It's a lie that's destroying our society. When we expose this lie, we expose the liars who are behind it. Just going to scroll through some comments over here. After the vaccination, the chip in the right hand or forehead is coming. After a world dictator comes to the fore. Taking this chip dooms one forever and ever. Yeah, these are real possibilities. People should not dismiss this as, crazy, fantastic fears, irrational fears. No. These are real concerns. Now, if a SWAT team comes to my house, there's nothing I can do. But now there are things that we can do. We can choose not to participate to the extent that we can. Maybe some people are less in that position. They simply have no choice. Well, I'm not talking about those people, and that's unfortunate for them that they're in a position in which they have no choice. But people who do have a choice, who can choose to go their own way, to separate and not participate in the lies, they should not participate in the lies, and they should call out the lies. Quote, we will have to separate from society. In ancient Israel, during the time of Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah, to live in society, one had to worship Baal, one had to worship idolatry. The Creator took care of those who refused, right? Thank you for this comment, Devorah Hannah. We have to not be ashamed to call out the lie, to separate ourselves from a system that wants us to conform with lies, with a mind control operation that's seeking to destroy our communities and our families and our schools. We won't participate in this madness. And God, we have to trust in God. We do the right thing, He will take care of those who refuse to participate. It's time to do what's right. People, yeah, it's great when you're walking down the street and you see someone else not wearing a mask. It's like, you almost want to go up to the guy and hug him and say, "You made my day. You're not wearing a mask. I have so much respect for you for your civil disobedience and not wearing a mask." It's just, it sounds so crazy that we would come to this point, but especially in a store. I was in a store today, and I was not wearing a mask, and I saw many people with masks, but there were some people without masks, without, and that was great. I was like, it made my day to see these shoppers not wearing masks in the store. It was great. Americans have so far given up because they don't know how to fight this constitutionally. They're educated on how to use the toolbox. If they would be educated on how to use the toolbox in the Constitution that was left to them by the framers, they would fight. Yeah. We need to spread knowledge of these basic righteous principles in the Constitution, and so too the same principles in similar principles in other Western democracies that could be of use in this battle. So we're dealing with a rebellious, a need for a rebellion. And of course there are bad rebellions. In the Torah we have a rebellion of Korach, who rebelled against Moshe, against Moses. That was a bad rebellion. But there are good rebellions. We had the Maccabees, the Hashmonaim, those who rebelled against the evil Syrian Greek Empire. We admire, we revere their sacrifices, their insurrection. So I do not endorse or advocate violence, God forbid, but what I advocate for is courage in calling out lies, courage in promoting truth, courage in refusing to cooperate with measures that involve submission to an evil, statist, totalitarian, and also atheist, ultimately, agenda of destroying the society, the good things in society, destroying society, destroying people's lives, their livelihoods, their communities, their friendships, their and their families. And ultimately, these elites clearly have the goal to simply commit mass murder. They're outright Nazis. They want depopulation. The world is overpopulated. We've got to get rid of people. We're dealing with an incredibly evil agenda. So masks and social distancing and all these other things are all part of the evil agenda that leads to a one world government with 500 million people, according to the Georgia Guidestone goal. That's the evil we're dealing with. So we should not. Now is not a time for going along to get along. Now is a time for resistance. When tyranny becomes law, resistance is a duty Thanks so much for listening. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel.